A 4.4K scrim means so the number teams don't have SRs obviously. So the 4.4K is average SR. Now a lot of teams when they're looking for scrims don't do this, and a lot of teams go for like the average of their individual peak SRs. But that's annoying when people do that because then they always get fucking trounced when they look for a scrim. So if you if you're ever looking for scrims, please just go off your your average current. Not your unless one of you like really deranked or something like that. But peak is all-time peak. Like I was 4.6 at one point. Now I'm like floating 4.2 or something. Anyway, I'll only do one scrim VOD today.
What average these guys?
Try and do
these guys are 4.4.
4.4 average. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty decent.
Gotta peek that window.
They made it. They're really smart. I really appreciated those plays on the enemy team. Like when they set up Bastion hands on high ground. When you guys engaged that last fight, that was pretty smart. But they made a load of stupid mistakes that game. Like Mercy was trapped in the back line. She couldn't really do anything.
Wait, can you do this?
Yeah.
Hey, everyone go up. They're jumping out top.
Charge from the top ropes. You won't do it, you coward.
So
I want to see what comp you're running.
That's insane. And then you go deeper and come up here.
Yeah.
They'll swap. They're just fucking around in the spawn room.
Go onto the top. There you go.
Oh.
You're
Oh my god, this
first.
update is so OP.
Everyone reads as we run out.
I need to get up. Quick, go sim. Fine. Go sim.
Okay. It's against the Swiss World Cup team. So they're on the other side.
Then over here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Are you actually running goats at the 4.4? Okay.
Come on, guys.
Dude, that was so useless.
How are we ever gonna win?
So I'm just going to do a minor bitch. If you're playing at the 4.4K level, did anybody see the mistake right off the start? What was the mistake right off the start? He didn't pick Torb. Okay, chat, take a real long swig of your coffee. Oh. Yeah, like the no scouting things, but I was talking about as an individual error.
Then over here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You could fire strike, you could scout, you could also just not let your shield get dinked like this.
Come on, guys.
Dude, that was so useless.
How are
So
we...
you made it to the choke, and because you were blocking just random ass trash damage, your diva is also doing this. Unbelievable. So Goats survives based on how long you can conserve your resources and basically tank spam, especially if they have Junk Hanzo. You guys are pretty fucked here. Pretty fucked. You got to save your defense matrix. You got to save your shield. And there's kind of like two ways you can do it. You can speed alley and kind of like try and cross. But against a Junkrat, they're going to spam out that little choke and you're all going to die. So really the only way for you to do this is to go to point and to hide right underneath the team and force somebody to come down and contest you. I guess I should stop just waving my mouse around and actually draw. So you can go right side of statue onto point. You can go directly to point, which is a fine option. You can also try and go through hotel and then onto point, but it doesn't really matter because you just need to get into this position as quickly as you can because this is the thing that reduces the sight lines of the opponent the most, and they need to send somebody to contest you, and when they contest you, you are now at the advantage since they're on the ground, and you can just fuck them up. But you can't wait. Like, if you can't survive long enough to force them into the stage where they have to contest you on the point, Goats isn't going to work out.
We ever gonna win?
Early bubbles. Shield's already low.
Yeah.
And you're dead. If only you had some magical ability on your team that could just block projectiles and hit scan damage for like a whole 2 seconds so you could safely transition onto point.
Just force. We can get a tick. We can get a tick. Yeah, diva.
They're not going to let you have a tick.
Diva.
Junk up top, above us.
Want Diva now? Diva mech?
Diva.
Jump on,
Get
Jump
diva
one,
jump.
jump one.
Nice.
Take it even, dead.
Stand point. We can get a tick.
We win this.
You won that fight. Oh, goodness.
Arista,
I'm on Ursa now.
someone.
Just slowly walk up and kill the Mercy.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you had no business winning that fight. Okay, so your team is also a bunch of bros. They got shit on, bro. They got shit on, bro. Did you see that? I shit on him. I shit on him real good. So, it's too bad that we didn't have a perspective of what actually happened in this fight. But, because there's a few different things that they should be doing here in order to actually manage the ticks themselves, is that normally a diva on the opposing team is going to be the one that actually drops to contest the point. Because if the diva drops off the high ground, then she can return to high ground very, very quickly. So she's the first one to contest. She gets double pocketed, goes onto the point, stays as long as she can, boosts up to the high ground before she loses mech. And then if you still haven't killed the opponent, still haven't gotten an ult from your Junkrat or anything like that, then your Orisa drops and fortifies. And that's when things really get hairy. Is if the defenders can't resolve things before the Orisa has to drop and fortify, then shit gets
How we ever get
really bad. The diva starts on the point, so this is the mistake from red team. The diva should not be starting on the point.
Yeah.
Boosts up, so the diva has boosted up and off the point itself.
Just force. We can get a tick. We can get a tick. Yeah, diva.
I got Zen.
There's Zenyatta fucked up is the second mistake.
Diva.
Junk up top, above us.
And what is the... So, you lose your Zarya to a damage boosted Hanzo.
Diva mech?
Diva.
Jump on,
Get
jump
diva
one,
jump.
jump one.
Nice.
And then Junk was on the low ground and managed to die to a Brigitte. So far I'm not impressed with either of these teams. I was looking for some higher level stuff, but the search continues.
Even dead.
Stand point. We can get a tick.
We win this. Arista, reinforce. Arista,
I'm on Ursa now.
someone.
You can do that, Paddles. I don't mind.
They got shit on.
They got shit on, bruh. They got shit on.
Shooting, I just left clicked. I'd killed the diva baby and the jug. They just let me do.
What was I talking about? Didn't somebody ask me about what I would try and coach about a gold team this morning? I'm pretty sure you don't have really? Okay, I'll do that. But I'm pretty sure this morning somebody asked the question, a bit message came in and it was like, what is something that you would focus on with a gold team? And what was one of my answers? Not talking about the past, talking about the next fight. And then we're looking at a 4.4k scrim, and the fuckers are talking about, oh, did you see that, bro? We wrecked them, bro. Wrecked them. Oh, man. Anyway, I just got to make a ping. Quick a second. Oh god. For some reason our bot isn't working. Okay. So, let's see what they do.
Shit.
Well,
Wrecked them? We hardly knew them.
Who's in car? Just in car.
Wait, I think he's
I'll go car.
Alright, I'll keep you using.
apparently Diva moving out. Keep it covered. That's what I saw on the news.
You heard
Yeah,
of me.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
Get on the car.
There's a rip tire from them.
Stop things high ground.
Holy, okay.
I didn't even see it.
I was looking at that.
Oh no, you're gonna lose your mech mech.
They
Say that,
wrecked
just
us,
say that.
brah.
Big kill you. Just don't
They
show
wrecked us.
yourself.
Yeah, it's one cam.
Holy Mary, that's close.
I need to wait for shields.
Beach Zen Pairing next fight.
Rally. No, they probably don't have grab yet. That's fine. There's the dragon coming out.
Speeding him away, left side. Yes.
You're on your own.
Warriors solo.
Nice, nice. Okay, get Ryan.
Run him on. Nice.
Okay.
Push up.
Speed is dead.
Zarya's half.
Speeding.
Zarya's one.
Jing popped it. No personal.
Okay, still kill her.
I'm backing up.
I'm grabbing. It's fine.
Don't talk about it. I ran out of speed.
So sometimes how do I be nice about this? Sometimes you encounter teams that are 6 solo queue players having met or are friends, and they form a team. So there is a distinct difference between 6 high-ranked players playing on a team and an actual team of players working together. There's things that happen in solo queue, and there's things that happen in 6v6, and you can't... They're different games. They're completely different games. And you kind of have to... What's a good way of putting this down? It's almost like there's a verbal history or something. There's no written texts. There's no guides on YouTube. There's no wiki articles or anything about how to play 6v6 Overwatch. You learn from seeing other people do it. You learn from having other people teach you how to do it. It's kind of like, you know, the Native Americans having shared stories through songs, and the songs are passed through generations. Like, if you just kind of get 6 solo queuers and put them together, they're gonna get trounced. Because things like payload management, you know, there's a shit ton of GM and top 500 players who don't have the slightest idea about payload management. There's a lot of people who are top 500 just on individually playing their own character, having really good aim or really good sense about what they should be doing and, you know, how to 1v1 or exploit opponents. And that's not enough for a team setting where you have to look at the bigger picture, you have to play, you know, larger objective-based mind games, you know, you use your abilities selflessly. So, in the same way that I kind of approach gold and platinum VODs, on gold and platinum VODs, I like to find, you know, one issue or like the core problem that prevents the individual from climbing. And then in Grandmaster and top 500 VODs, when I'm reviewing them, I like to focus on all of the little things that the team can improve. But I get the same feeling looking at this VOD that I do when I look at a gold VOD, in that the sheer quantity of errors confuses me about which one I should pick and focus on. This doesn't feel like a team. This feels like ranked. So I'm going to let it play because I want to get a better feeling for your team. Maybe it was just a rough start, but I'm just going to let it play for a while and kind of try and see a little bit more about your team. I also want to see what you go to and how you play when you swap off goats. If you swap off goats.
You should have just backed up.
Where's it coming from? It's probably rooftops again. It could be.
This is so fucking scary. Holy shit, what?
Come back.
Speed.
Yeah, that was a bad bomb as well. My bad.
Yeah, that was bad for me as well.
It was like the last second I ran out of speed, so it didn't eat across.
Alright, let's go.
Okay.
I'm Kozaria. They only have Run Shatter then.
And Mercy up. Oh, yeah, no, yeah, they did. That's good.
Okay, they use Junkrat Tide, they use Grab. There's a
Ryan.
Run behind.
Get Ryan. We can get Ryan. Ryan's one.
Oh, fuck. I fucked
Oh,
up.
lucky.
Hey, it's me. That's how I play Brigitte. Rally
We can
died.
get Azaria.
The Matrix. Pull back.
Okay, we're staggering too much.
I don't think the comp has...
Still get spam.
Go right up top and just jump on them, and then we won't take
Yeah,
the
yeah.
spam.
Have a junk rush up.
Moira's...
Wait.
Oh, speed up.
Here we go.
Alright, let's go speed boost now.
Speed boosting.
Back up.
Speeding.
It's fine, Josh.
Junk dead.
Right side.
I want the Ryan.
Oh,
It's
The Ryan's
winnable,
off.
it's winnable.
Ryan's slow.
Kill Ryan and we win.
Do you really stay on Ghost this entire
Is there a-
time?
I don't know where he's hitting it. I don't see it.
I might just go Tracer. That's what we did last time.
Actually, go something we
They
can
played this
combo.
against us last.
Oh, we can go.
Go Hanzo or something. Quick.
With me.
Even their hero swaps make me laugh. Go Hanzo something.
So they can get backfiring.
Well, you definitely
They
can't
have
put
grab,
Hanzo into
so they can hit
goats,
into the
so you just swapped your.
Oh, I just lost mech.
This is painful. This is painful to watch.
Damn it, I went too deep, my bad.
There's Zarya as well.
Your opponents probably aren't even finding this useful practice either.
I need one hit
Chris,
on
can you go? Actually,
Playing in imbalanced scrims is actually really quite dangerous because good teams can develop bad habits and bad teams don't learn anything from them.
I don't know. We need a Mercy for the combo.
Sure, mess it now? I don't mind.
Yeah, I guess you go Mercy instead.
Are you kind of putting a comp together now?
Roll up.
No, you're not.
I go Zen, then
Yeah, after your ult.
We're gonna let this play until the round break, and then we're gonna talk.
I say use your ult this fight, just so you can go Zen. Use it now.
We probably have Shatter.
I'm resing.
Okay, good. Tactical reset.
Oh.
They wasted hammer at
Go
least.
dive.
You don't even have the dragon yet anyway.
He's nearly got just damage boost him. Let's say he
Yeah,
got
yeah.
Dragon quick.
I'm not sure there's anywhere we can really sell.
What was the comp we went last time where we broke this? Because this happened to us before.
We
on this
we just
time.
went
Pharaoh.
Hanzo Ryan and then Pharaoh.
We lost it.
Yeah.
I swear we
No.
pushed it though, like a fight.
We pushed it to second point. What?
That's a fun
You would think after the fourth time they pulled
You can
that
touch that
same trick, you would check corners.
Chris can touch.
Another one.
Got ult
Chris,
now.
you're dead. Okay. Nice.
Got ult.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
There.
Damage boost me.
unlucky.
Hey, he subscribes to the school of unlucky. I like it. I
big
too
punch
think
shot.
everything is unlucky.
And I'm trapped.
That's the only bit. If we don't have the momentum,
If you do wonder why people say unlucky, it's just going to kind of become a thing that people use to kind of combat tilt. Instead of being like, we fucking suck. They wrecked us, bruh. You can just be like, unlucky. And it's not like anybody who says unlucky actually thinks it was unlucky. The people who say unlucky are very well aware that they got royally fucked. It's just kind of like, don't let the pain show, Jayne. Don't let the pain show. Unlucky.
to push it past there, we just get countered.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
only
happened
thing
multiple
we
times
can't.
now.
It's when we can't
Smile.
push back there. It was the mistake of us overextending on that last.
This is actually going to be really interesting. I wonder what the team thinks went wrong. This is going to be fascinating to listen to. What does the team themselves think they did wrong there?
And I'm trapped.
That's the only bit. If we don't have the momentum to push it past there, we just get countered.
Yeah.
That's
If
the
we don't have the momentum to push it past bookstore or arches, we just get countered. Statements like that bother me when people say we just get countered, but they don't say like why or what countered them.
It's happened multiple times now.
It's happened multiple times now. Not a
Zombie
good sign.
We can't push back there. It was the mistake of us overextending.
It was the mistake of us overextending. So you mean like trying to go for stagger kills? That wasn't really a mistake.
I think that only works when we have a higher burst comp.
Higher
This is more
burst comp.
Like you need to pass the fuck in.
I think we made the mistake of like someone's out of position and they're like a high value target like a Zarya or something, and we want to punish them, but we don't have the damage to kill them quickly enough.
What are you gonna do for defense? Go to again or change it up?
Goes for defense.
Just either or probably Junkrat onto Mercy's
And like one of the things that really drives me crazy too is if you are like a formed team and not in like tryouts, if you're experimenting with new people, if you're working on something internal like comms or something like that themselves. This is I don't know, this is a bit of a reach, but at least teams that I would consider serious should have compositions and strategies for those compositions on every map pre-made. So instead of discussing kind of like which heroes you should play, it should be, are we going to pick this comp, that comp, or that comp? Most teams have them named internally if they're not using like the standard terms for them. So should it be, are we playing like Widow Dive, or are we doing Orisa Defense? And just by saying these words, the entire team should know the composition and the strategies that go into those. But trying to like make up comps in the 60 seconds you have to set up is difficult and really not going to put you in a very good place for scrims themselves.
I wasn't listening. What did you say?
Could try Orisa Diva. That is the strongest Kings Row defense at the moment. Wonder how you play
We
it.
take Widow, or are they just gonna run at us?
But before we get into this, before we get into their defense, I suppose. Chat, help me out here. I want you to pick one thing, chat. I want you to pick one thing, and that one thing is going to be the thing that you think was this team's largest problem. I want you to post that in chat. What do you think was their largest problem on the attack? The sheer quantity of errors? That's cheating. They just suck. Well, that's not constructive. You're a better coach than that. I believe in you. Lack of comms. There were comms that just weren't very helpful. Nothing, they got countered. Well, that, when you say there was nothing wrong with what they were playing, they just got countered. That's there's a whole bunch of things that go into that, right? Did they recognize that they were countered? If they did recognize that they were countered, why didn't they swap off? If they didn't recognize that they were countered, why didn't they recognize that? And in the future, how could they recognize when they're countered to the point that they need to switch compositions? So you can't just say there was nothing wrong, they got countered, because as a coach, that's not good enough. They don't have a specific plan. That's yes. No scouting, planning the engagement. Yes. They didn't adapt to the fact their strategy wasn't working. Yes. They had no shot caller. You don't have to have a shot caller, but one of the things that is really bad when you don't have a shot caller is if you have like 3 or 4 people talking about what to do. Like, we could do this, we could do that. This is going wrong. But there's no one individual in charge of actually making that decision. It happens where, kind of 4 people talk about something, but it never reaches a resolution because nobody says, okay, because of that, let's do this. So somebody actually has to make the decision. So if you are going to have more of these like collaborative or democratic, style of calls, either you have to have people willing to say, let's do this, and not just kind of like be like, oh, but what do you think? Let's take a vote. It's like, pass the information as much as you, or as quickly as you can, but at some point, someone needs to actually make that decision. With the shot caller structure, it's very simple because the shot caller either makes the call or he doesn't. Whereas in the more like collaborative, chaotic comms, anybody can call for the swap, and unless that swap is countermanded with reason, then you go with it. So it doesn't have to be a singular shot caller. I think as teams are getting better and better, the idea of a singular shot caller is fading away. Not playing as a team, yes. What do you think of Finland? Good. Nico, overconfident ultimate usage, not respecting the Zarya Hanzo combo, not respecting the enemy's comp with timely counterpicks. Yes. No space creating, especially on flanks. It's King's Row. It's more of a linear map. There are some flanks, but it's mostly like individual high ground control. And with certain compositions, you are able to ignore the high grounds, depending. But they choked. Complacency. They weren't supporting UK, so they received a devastating headshot. But there's a lot of things going on here. And I feel like this team is new. There was definitely no ult tracking or ult planning going into it. Once you kind of get... yeah, I guess the first thing that I would kind of work on with this team is trying to break up the idea of a game into the idea of discrete team fights, which I don't think is happening for this team. So there's a game, or like a series is involved with a bunch of maps, and inside of those maps, you know, there's 2 rounds or multiple rounds if it's 2 CP, and then each one of those rounds comes up with a series of team fights. There's the initial team fight, which has like rollouts and whatnot, and then after that you have to, there's reset, you know, there's posture, you have plans for them, you use ult tracking and ult rotation, but if teams themselves don't view games as a series of discrete team fights, then things become a lot more difficult to frame the context of the conversation. So the first thing is that I'd like this team supposed to actually kind of even get the smallest of a framework for, you know, viewing these matches as team fights. And the first thing I would probably introduce to them is you wouldn't want to do ult tracking to start with. If they don't have someone who has ever ult tracked before on their team, it's going to be so overwhelming for them to try and keep track of the opponent's ultimates. Like if you have Mercy Main, that's unfortunate. Mercy Main on Discord isn't matching name in-game. But if you have Mercy Main, who is the closest thing to a shot caller that they have right now, do the ult tracking, and if Mercy Main hasn't ult tracked ever before, it's going to be a huge ask of Mercy Main to just be like, okay, you're our ult tracker, I expect you to know all 6 of the opponent's ultimates within 10%, go. Like, that's difficult without practice and training. So you would start off with just planning around the obvious ultimates like Transcendence and Graviton, have your Rhine keep track of their Rhine's hammer, and then have somebody like Mercy Main. You don't really track friendly ults anymore, but you do, you do plan which ultimates you're going to use. And the other thing is that they really need to hammer out of their comm structure is not talking in the past tense and always checking forward, map control and awareness. They shouldn't have been caught by like flanking hammers and flanking gravitons so early. And even if they did kind of scout the Zarya, if they know that the Zarya is acting in a way that indicates that they have a graviton, if they have no counter, they need to hard rush the Zarya to either have her grav early, wipe early, reset so that the lost team fights take as little time as possible, or if they do have a way to work around it, they identify that the Zarya has grav and they use their counter. There's just so many different things that you would need to work on to start bringing this team up to like an acceptable level. This team badly needs a coach or somebody with previous team experience. Just somebody with previous team experience saying we need this would go a long way. You don't even need a coach to get the basics. But, if we're talking about the SR of a team, let's say that a team is 4K. If we have a team that's 4K, the pen is freaking out. If they go against a team of just 6 solo queuers who are at 4K, Normally, you can scrim about 200 SR up. Normally, you can scrim about 200 SR up, if you're coordinated. So if a team, a 4.0K team, should be better than a 4.2K team of souls. And I don't know why my pen is freaking out and not lifting. What is my pen doing? This is so weird. Those aren't even English letters. But I've also seen it the same way, where if this 4K team is assembled based off of solo queue players, and then they start to try and play scrim strats that they've seen like in the Overwatch League, which is good God, do not blindly copy Overwatch League strats without understanding why Overwatch League does their strats. And I'm gonna make a video about this someday. I'm going to one day make a video about Horizon Lunar Colony and the evolution of the meta in the Overwatch League, because that will really demonstrate how different Overwatch League strats and, you know, top tier professional competitive Overwatch is compared to normal people scrims and solo queue. But yeah, so 4K teams, if they just have like a bunch of 4K solo queue players and they aren't bringing in all of the factors that, you know, good teams use, communication, you know, ult tracking and planning and calling and, you know, set strats, rotations, flank control, scouting, you know, all these things, if they just blindly copy the compositions that the pros and the semi-pros use without understanding them, it can actually decrease their efficiency. Because these guys, the only thing they're familiar with is the solo queue environment. If they're trying to copy something they don't understand and play heroes they're not as intimately familiar with, or they're playing the heroes that they got them to the 4K rank, they can scrim down pretty significantly. So one of the key suggestions to teams that are new is stick to what you know. Stick to what you know. Pen, please. Stick to what you know. And the reason why you should stick to what you know is because the compositions that pros use are based off things that solo queuers don't know. It's based off practice. It's based off counterpicking. You know, it involves scouting, flank control, individual synergy, you know, ultimate rotations in some place. So stick to what you know while you start implementing the things that teams do. And once you have those things, then you can start building the compositions that you see successful teams doing. But don't try and mirror goats if you don't know the things that goats do to make that composition successful.
Try Widow.
Ace if you want.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
I can Zen if
Would
you
I
want
play?
the rest, so-
I'm glad you
What
enjoyed the
fuck is up
ML7
with
video.
this spray?
Honestly, the ML7 video, and I'm going to do a quick sellout. It's not really a sellout because it's my own damn content, but... Oh, I clicked the wrong button.
I don't know what's best.
We were at 2620. Okay. We're going to... Why, did YouTube just change? What? Actually, okay, so this video right here is Masters Ana with ML7. So if you missed this stream where I talked with ML7 about Ana, this review is probably one of the best VOD reviews that has happened on my channel since ever. It's an hour and a half. We went longer than our normal VOD reviews. But this is probably like the best VOD review that has ever happened on my channel, and it is well worth your time to listen to ML7 talk about Ana. So, yeah, this video came out yesterday. I think we posted it yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Great video. Check it out. Tell us why it's the best. Because ML7 talks about a whole bunch of stuff. And it's not just about Ana. He talked about the mindset of improvement. He talked about awareness. He talked about a lot of things that apply to a lot of supports. as well as how he handles ranked. You know, he's the guy who finished with 3 Ana accounts in the top 500. The stuff that he shared in terms of playing the hero and how to identify, you know, the situation of the game itself. He just had a lot more to say about the game, and it wasn't just an Ana review. I think it was worth it to. I'm gonna have to rewatch it myself because I liked it so much. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. I'll take a risk. I can't use Zen.
It's retarded.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds. I recommend moving behind my body.
That was him on the thumbnail, yes.
Yeah. It's been a long time since we completed the map. I think Junktown's a map now.
Okay, here's a question for you, chat. Who does the Zenyatta pair off with? Chat just lists everyone. Oh, man. So it's kind of a trick question. Not really, but to start with, the Zenyatta usually pairs off with the Widowmaker. And the reason that the Zenyatta pairs off with the Widowmaker is because both of them operate at the same line of sight, and together it makes it much, much more difficult for any one individual to 1v1 them or counter them. So Widow has her own counters and Zenyatta has his own counters, but working together, even though they're weaker characters individually in close range, if characters can get on top of them, together they can fight off most threats. So Zenyatta and Widow are usually the ones that you pair off. However, if the opponent has a Widowmaker of their own, then the Zenyatta will normally transition and just play behind the Orisa shield as much as he can. The Widowmaker, in response, will either play behind the Widowmaker or the Orisa shield as well, which is unlikely on King's Row first, and will more likely take an angle which allows them to shoot tanks and supports, but not be threatened by the attacking Widowmaker. So there's some things there with the Zenyatta. But whenever you have a Zenyatta and a Widowmaker, but then you have a Mercy and another character that likes damage boost more than the Widowmaker, you want the Mercy to operate with the Junkrat because that damage is insane. Also, they have 3 approach points, all of which the Junkrat can spam from the high ground, which makes him a really powerful character. So you want, if you were to talk about the high ground here, so if you were to talk about Blackboard, so we've got, I'm just going to draw with my mouse instead. So we've got this, which is King's Row. King's Row, right? There's this part, so there's this high ground here, there's this high ground here, there's this window here, and then there's this window here. And then this is Hotel. Hotel, and then there's this statue. Okay, so what can happen is that we have the Orisa and the Diva here. So Diva and Orisa right here. And this is good. Oriso. It's now Oriso. So you can see left side of statue, you can see like right side of statue, and you can see alley if they take hotel flank. So though you've got great sight lines from here. And when they're starting off, yeah, you might have everybody here. But then once the fight actually starts evolving, one of the things you could do is you could have your Mercy in this hallway. And Mercy being in this hallway keeps her safe. But then if you have Junkrat here, for example, Junk can spam here, he can spam here, and he can get damage boost. He could also be with the Orisa and the Diva, it doesn't really matter. But Junkrat can kind of roam depending on what angles he wants. And Mercy can either damage boost the Junk or heal the Oroso or the Diva. And then if the Diva is dropping onto point, you want the Diva to be double pocketed, so the Mercy would probably, peek out either side just so that they can keep the beam connected onto the Diva while she's contesting the point. And when you have the Zenyatta and the Widowmaker, they would start in this sort of position as long as there was not an attacking Widowmaker. Zen Widow. Because this gives them different sightlines. This gives them sightlines into hotel. It gives them sightlines from right side of statue. And the big thing here is that if the opponent comes in with goats and they take position underneath the point, if you have your Widow and a Zen right here, the Widow and the Zen both become useless, completely useless. But the Widowmaker and the Zen, both of them can still get value because they have this crossfire. The other thing is that if there's an attacking Widowmaker who goes in this area, God, I hate drawing with the mouse. Now this Widow and Zen are pressured. So instead, the Widow and the Zen transition to this window and can still have that crossfire. But if they're not threatened by an attacking Widow, they can stay in this area because it gives them better sightlines over more of the map. So they cede some map control to an attacking Widow in order to still control the point itself. If the Widow is also here, the Orisa can fall back to here if they need to, just to make sure they're really safe. But knowing how this is kind of like an explanation of what this composition can do. So now that you know this, the Orisa Diva holding here, I'm interested to see how the Widow and the Zen are going to play and how the Junk himself plays. But yeah, it's let's see how this team actually runs this.
No.
Yeah.
No, just a lot of other teams practice it a ton because it's the best map in the game.
Why not in the second window from beginning? Because you can get some value before you rotate. You can always try and get some value before you rotate to your positions.
So a puck got picked, accidentally picked junk. The gun dive.
And where this Zen is positioning right now, I actually this was one of the reasons. This was a very common trend from a Zenyatta who tried out for Team Canada that I actually ended up he did make it through trials, is that he did this quite frequently. He always played with his tanks, always played with his second support. He was safe. His deaths per 10 stat, better than any Zenyatta. His offensive assists, his transcendence generation rate, all of his other stats sucked absolute shit. The guy played so safe. He was like a Harmony and a Discord bot. He just kind of just kept orbs on things and just stayed alive and expected his existence to be what helped his team succeed. You need to, playing more aggressive, slightly more aggressive, taking some more, I'm obviously not going to say who it was, but taking more risks so that you can actually get more value, as long as they're calculated risks, are important. You have to try and sneak out every bit of unpunished value you possibly can out of the opponent. If you're a support player, especially if you're a Zenyatta player, just staying alive isn't enough. You need to get value, and as much value as possible when you're alive, whether that value is healing, whether that value is damage, whether that value is, discords onto targets that are being shot, harmonies onto targets that otherwise would have died. You need to get more value, and just stuffing yourself behind a tank is not always going to be the way for you to do that.
Sick. Can't even see the stat sheet.
They have an Ana.
Good little rotation here.
We win a dive.
Okay,
Make
Trace-
sure Zen's...
Trace is gonna come behind
So they've almost got the setup correct. It's just this Zenyatta.
us.
So I do like him in this position more than with the Orisa and the Diva. And the other thing is the Junkrat himself, because he has his concussion mines, one of the things that he can do is either trap the Orisa, and who knows where he put his actual trap here, but they're actually pretty close to the proper setup.
I'm waiting for her.
Diva out.
Show me.
Ana dead.
I don't know why your
Nice.
junk dropped.
I don't know where Trace is. I think she's.
She's still behind.
On there, Mega.
Mega. She's around.
I'll try and pull. I pulled 3.
That
Shooting
sucks.
above her.
The D was off.
No one can hide.
Someone's in her.
Okay, I'm gonna pull.
She's Trace below.
She's probably trying to come around the long way.
Tracer can't do anything there. Just ignore her, right? What is she doing? Nothing.
Mercy dead.
Yes.
Genji dead.
Matrixing.
Diva trapped.
Get Diva.
In a bit.
Pulling Diva back.
We kill her. Oh, okay.
Chase is still behind.
Has anyone died?
She can go through.
No, I was
Chris- Zen died.
I got one. Like, right.
Oh, he's already back. It's fine then. Yeah, she's really just trying to wait so she can spawn camp someone so we're forced to go back.
Let's top left. Shit, Tracer behind. What the fuck? She's yeah, she's all the way behind. That's crazy.
Rotated back.
Genji behind.
A Tracer will find it infinitely more difficult to 1v1 a Zenyatta and a Widowmaker than it will to just one-clip a Widowmaker on the own. Especially if like the Zenyatta is helping the Widowmaker with awareness or, you know, checking corners or scouting or anything. That Tracer took one hell of a flank to get up there. Took one hell of a flank to get up there. And, you know, the Widowmaker obviously didn't see that flank, but this is, again, another reason to have the Zenyatta and the Widowmaker playing together where possible. Is that a singular flanker, like a Genji or a Tracer, trying to kill a Widowmaker who gets harmonied and then they themselves get discorded is so difficult. It's so difficult. The other thing, the Tracer will, or the flanker will become less effective and then they'll just get flamed by their team. Happy days.
Okay.
I'm going.
I'm gonna jump down now.
Me too.
D.Va's half.
Hey, monkey's
Monkey's one. Monkey's one. D.Va's one as well.
Close to full set.
Go on.
Didn't force.
Genji one.
Behind. That's crazy.
Rotated back.
Genji behind.
Okay.
I'm going.
And you spend a lot of time, too. Yeah. Like, so the D.Va is dropping. The D.Va is dropping when she's at half health. She has neither orb nor pocket.
I'm gonna jump
Gets immediately discorded and wrecked brah.
down now.
Me too.
And then the Orisa's like, I'll be on the ground. And Zenyatta's like, well, if everybody's doing it, I'll do it too.
D.Va's half.
Hey, monkey's one.
Monkey's one.
So it wasn't that bad, but things really got
D.Va's one as well.
Close to full set.
things got pretty bad here.
Go on.
Didn't force.
Genji one.
Fucking wall.
Oh my god! No way!
Triple kill with a junk passive.
Baby, it's triple.
Oh, we need to get back quick though.
I'm the only
Next
one.
back.
I'm just a pro player.
Oh man.
Insane mechanics.
Come back if you can. Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We got
Okay.
Press the right side. Press the right side.
There's only 3 of them. I don't know.
Oreo, I see you in chat. Do you play Zen at all? Are you just like filling for Zen, or do you play Zen at all? I don't want to go too critique heavy on you if you don't play Zen. Not really? Okay. Just for a fun fact. No, I won't. I won't. No.
I'm going in.
Actually, yes. Scroll. Gonna go look at the Team Canada stats. Where is it? Where is it? Scroll. So 4.1 or 4.3 ults per 10. That's such a weird stat. I have to do a conversion here quickly. 4.3 ults per 10. Ults per 10. It's 4.3 ults per minute. So that's not as easy as a conversion as I wanted it. I'm not going to do the full math. I was going to compare transcendence rates here to try and have a more quantitative assessment, but anyway. I was going to comment about your ult charge and kind of your decision making, in that a lot of the things that you were actually going off after here were things like pressuring flankers who weren't getting value, instead of trying to actually assist what your Orisa and your D.Va were doing with pressuring tanks, preventing them from making space, or if nothing else is going on, just kind of aggressively farming your ultimate is very useful. But yeah. I wanted to... And I don't just want to, like, show the stats sheet either.
Messi dead.
Nice little headshot.
Even make left.
Genji half HP.
The neck.
I got 3.
Oh, I got the neck.
And Genji's low.
Yeah, it's gone.
That was the strat, guys. I tactically died there.
That's one of the biggest fucking...
I watched the Genji turn around after a double dash to just fall into bombs. It was
Amazing.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to get 3. I was like, legit, I was like...
They're all low.
Get the Genji off that. Well, one was 35.
Yeah, I couldn't do the easy conversion because that stat didn't... The problem with the 4.3 ults per 10 thing is that that number also includes the time that they held their ultimates before they used it and then started charging another one. So that we don't have the stat. Like, yeah, I could do the conversion on just 4.3 ults per 10, but that assumes they charged it and used it immediately. So the 4.3 ultimates per 10 is how often they charged their ultimate and then found a use for it and used it, and then started charging another one. So it was like 2 minutes and 20 seconds or something like that was the average time that they both charged their ultimate and then found a use case for it. And we're well past 2 minutes and 20 seconds here, and this guy hasn't even farmed his trance yet, let alone found a time to actually use it. So Transcendence is one of the major tools. Any support's ultimate, other than Anna's is not nearly as useful as like Transcendence or Sound Barrier, are team-winning ultimates. They can keep your team alive long enough to kind of turn the tide of the fight. They can prevent a death. Absolutely massive, game-changing ultimates. And if some part of your mind isn't about which action here will grant me the most ult charge as quickly as possible, doesn't cross your mind, then you're kind of playing them wrong. In the areas where you were back here kind of like fighting this Tracer, let me try and find the exact moment. It was...
Okay, I'm gonna pull.
He's Tracer though.
She's probably trying to come around.
So right here is the kind of decision-making that I really didn't like. Now, this guy's not a Zen player, but for the Zen players out there, decisions like this can be extremely harmful. I don't need you to type it in chat, but what do you think the chances are of this Zenyatta, who is at 13% ult charge after 45 seconds, the potential value here is killing this Tracer. That is the potential value, killing the Tracer. And just think to yourself, what is the chance of this Zenyatta actually killing the Tracer? Just think. Is it very high? Maybe the Discord will actually zone out the Tracer, but what is the threat of the Tracer existing in this location? Her location is scouted, so you should know her options and know whether she's a threat, or if she's not a threat, how she could possibly become a threat in the future, such as flanking up behind, or flanking through hotel, or a house, or whatever you call this, apartments, apps. People call it different things. Where you would have a very, very low percentage chance of actually killing this Tracer, you would have a very, very high percentage chance of at least farming some ult charge off of the tanks while their Tracer is removed from the fight. So just little decision-making like this can dramatically affect your ultimate charge rate, which will dramatically affect how many fights you're actually going to end up winning.
The long way.
Much greater value Discord and spamming elsewhere. You're absolutely right. Like, look at all of these targets. Look at all of these targets that died. A Mercy died. Okay, they're headshots. Terrible example. But you don't see the little Zenyatta icon here. You don't see the Zenyatta icon. None of these targets were discorded when they died.
D.Va trapped.
Get D.Va.
You kind of like 1v1 to Zen at
Oh,
range,
D.Va
but
back.
the Zen was honestly
killer.
being a little bit of a bot.
Oh, okay.
Chase is still behind.
Has anyone died?
She can go through.
Oh, I was
Chris, Zen died.
I got one. I got
Oh, he's already back. It's fine then. Yeah, she's really just trying to wait so she can spawn camp someone so we're forced to go back.
That's top left. Shit, Tracer behind. What the fuck? She's yeah, she's all the way behind. That's crazy.
If you matrix me,
Rotated
What are the chances of you actually getting this kill?
back.
Genji behind.
Okay.
Still there.
I'm going.
I'm gonna jump down now.
Meteors. Right.
D.Va's half.
Monkey.
Monkey's one. Monkey's one.
What are the chances of your Junkrat getting a triple kill off of his total mayhem?
D.Va's one as well.
First of all, dead.
Go on.
Dead on spot.
51.
Sometimes crazy shit happens.
No way.
Triple, dude.
Oh my god.
Oh, maybe it's triple.
Oh, we need to get back.
And this is, man, if I was actually this team's coach, yeah, it's hilarious, but I would also just be really angry that people aren't just like getting so excited about the potential they've been given an opportunity to retake. So instead of just jerking each other off about, oh, baby, a triple, talking about who spawned first, who can contest, how many ticks can we give up before we're able to recontest. They have spawn advantage. Who was the first to die? Who's going to be the first one back on the point? Who was our first to die? Who's going to be fighting that 1v1, that 2v2 until the rest of the team arrives? There's a lot of things that could be discussed here.
Quick though. Ace back.
I'm just a pro.
Get moving, not
Save the
memeing,
cannon.
dog. I like that. I like that.
Back if you can, yes.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We got.
Okay.
Tracer right side. Tracer right side.
There's only 3 of them. I know.
This is a pretty decent position, especially with your Junkrat here.
I'm going in.
Junkrat left you, though.
She dead.
Genji's half.
Give me Meg left.
Genji half HP.
The Meg.
I got 3.
Oh, I got the Meg.
And Genji's low.
Yeah, it's gone.
That was the strat, guy.
You never want to be alone as a Zenyatta, unless you're like really far back. And the two things that can keep you company are either a teammate or a health pack.
I tactically died there.
That's one of the biggest fucking.
I watched the Genji turn around after a double dash to just fall into bombs. It was really
Amazing.
bad.
I was not expecting to get 3. I was like legit. I was like,
They're all low.
get the Genji off that. Well, one was 35.
Why is the Genji dash
and
back?
one was 100.
I think he one-shot the D.Va.
It's so much value for an Orisa when an Orisa halts and just like forces out Reflect or like especially a Winston bubble. That's huge. Whenever you force out a cooldown like that, that prevents them from engaging until that cooldown is back available to them.
I think I killed all of us by shooting the Genji
Tracer
back.
behind.
Okay, I'm pulling Genji back.
Yet they decided to engage anyway.
Nice shot.
Nice. Get D.Va now.
I'm pushing Tracer out.
I'm
I'm
gonna
pushing away.
I'm
Nice
contesting.
shot.
Nice.
Oh, this show push up. You don't want to let them in and get like. You have to not let them get stuff.
Oh, shit, I'm short myself. Okay, they know I'm here.
So like a regular. I have trance. Tracer left. Tracer left. And D.Va.
Yeah, D.Va left.
Trancing.
D.Va's one.
Gonna
Nice.
Yeah, these were the balls.
No.
Get D.Va again. D.Va's one. D.Va's really low. D.Va's really low.
Yes,
I'll pull D.Va.
The Meg.
Winston outing.
Wait, I need help with the Zen. I need help with the Zen. I'm gonna die.
They've lost both DPS.
Watch out, I'm
Just Zen and baby D.Va and call.
She's chasing me, dude. She's chasing me. Thank you.
I'm gonna watch that again.
Get D.Va now.
Tracer.
I'm pushing Tracer out.
I'm
I'm
gonna
pushing away.
I'm
Nice
contesting.
shot.
Nice.
Oh, this show push up. You don't want to let them in and get like. You have to not let them get stuff.
Oh, shit, I'm short myself.
So, this is another thing that most teams do or should do that you're not doing because you guys obviously don't have much team experience, or at least nobody's taught you. But right now, the Widowmaker sites themselves, like the infra site and what the Zenyatta is doing, are both scouting. Right? They're both scouting, for information about the opponents. And when we see a large number of opponents not coming main, but going left from our perspective, their right, our left, what do we need to do? So scouting isn't just for fun. We need to do things based off of this information. Already, somebody got it. Rotate. Perfect. So we're going left. If the opponent is going left, we say they're going left, rotate. And you should, if you don't have a very specific rotation, which you probably wouldn't for this specific area on King's Row, you would let your team know, and then everyone would take new positions to, instead of defending from main, to defend on attack from the left, which would probably mean fall back to bookstore. But you stay here with your Orisa, and your Orisa sets up a new shield at main, even though the opponent could be actively speeding through left side. And you saw this. You had Infrasight, and you personally, individually saw these people going to the left. You didn't call it, you didn't rotate to it, or you didn't rotate based off of it. You have 6 sets of eyes on your team, and 2 of them, assuming your Orisa isn't completely blind, saw this. Your Widowmaker could probably infer this from having Infrasight as well as just not having seen the opponent. The act of not seeing an opponent, whether they're not seeing all 6 or not seeing a singular distinct opponent like a Tracer, also gives you information. The lack of information can also be information. Kind of like the lack of one individual in a kill feed can mean that that individual is still alive trying to C9 you or flank you or something like that. The lack of information is almost, if not more important than the information that is present. But, so 2 of you, probably 3 of you, saw this happening and none of you reacted. None of you called it to the other 3 members of your team who don't have vision of the opponent's spawn. Now you see this. Now you see the Winston jump to the right. Now what does this mean? Now the call should be different. Should be rotate left, and then it should be, oh, Winston's staging right. So whenever you see this happening, this is called staging. When you have different people coming from different angles and different positions where they want to start from to attack a singular target. And people will normally stage to attack a location. So when you're seeing the Winston at hotel, it means that the Winston is going to have to jump from main, and the positions in which he can actually attack are limited. And if you can recognize those positions where they are and vacate those positions, then the Winston is either useless or the dive is going to be half-assed. Well, those are both basically the same thing. But recognizing and reacting to your opponents on a team level is very important here. So Winston is staging hotel. D.Va is going to be staging left, and I think the DPS are going to be staging high for a dive into the area directly in front of bookstore. You go right click. There's the Tracer. Tracer is going to be staging behind.
Yeah, deep left.
And look where you are. Right in front of bookstore. And there's the Tracer. There's the Genji. There's the Winston.
D.Va's 1. Nice.
No communication. Both supports were in the same place. Both supports use support ults at the same time.
Yeah, D.Va support ults.
Get D.Va again. D.Va's 1. D.Va's really low. D.Va's really low.
Yes,
I'll pull D.Va.
Winston outing.
Wait, I need help with the Zen. I'm gonna die.
They've lost both DPS.
Just Zen and baby D.Va and call it.
She's chasing me, dude. She's chasing me. Thank you.
Fragger, dude. She's a fragger.
And you got away with it because you over-ulted. I see a question in chat says, how would you play against staging like this? There's kind of 2 options. The first being you vacate the area in which they staged around, because staging usually involves corralling an opponent into one location by controlling left flank, right flank, flank behind a high ground position, something like that, and then collapsing on them. So corral and collapse. You can counter this by either not being in the corralled location, not allowing them to stage in the first place, or, if you have the ability, divide and conquer. There's 3 kind of different ways. I'm going to sell out again. Don't open this document on stream. Got it. And what? Okay. So this video, Team Canada Scrim Review #1, Mangachu's Junkrat. So in this VOD, right here, right here. Perfect. So if this one actually talks, this doesn't really talk about it, but I pull off a strategy in this video that is basically it. So in this is the very, very classic New York defense of Horizon Lunar Colony, where the Orisa shield is on the high ground left, and then the Junkrat is up there. Because normally, in order to actually stage a dive onto the point, the dive targets need to get onto this high ground, because the high ground is what they use to stage a dive onto the point. So the meta evolved from holding on the point to holding in the areas that dive needed in order to actually dive. So now dive has to fight for the location that they want to stage from before they can stage and then dive. And they can't, there are no good staging locations for a dive to attack the actual staging locations they want. So if you want to learn more about how to counter staged dives, this is exactly what this strategy is meant to do. So Team Canada Scrim Review #1, Mangachu's Junkrat.
But you have no main tank.
I wonder how much Jayne is getting paid for this promo. I pay myself all the monies. I pay myself in Subway sandwiches.
Monkey one. Monkey dead.
Nice, dude.
That was a really good trade there.
The DPS just hit it at the bookshop.
Where is your widow? Your widow's right here. Where's your? Am I missing someone? Did somebody on your team die?
Wait, I need help with the Zen. I'm gonna die.
I've lost both DPS.
Killed 2 of them.
Just Zen and Baby Demon caught.
You res.
chasing me, dude. He's chasing me.
Got their mercy.
Fragger, dude. Just fragger.
Oh, your Orisa died and respawned.
But you have no main tank.
Need a hawk?
I'm gonna pause this at a specific moment in time, and I want you to tell me what's wrong.
Monkey one.
Out.
Monkey dead.
Nice, dude.
That was a really good trade there.
What's wrong right here?
The DPS just hit it.
What is wrong with this picture right now? Man, chat, you're too smart. It's not, it has nothing to do with cover. It has nothing to do with cover. You want your 6, in this case 5, because your Orisa's dead. You want your 6 sets of eyes to see different things. And you want the actual 6 characters on your team to control different areas of the map. The very simple one is if this window. You could control this window. You could have somebody still looking main. You know, you could have your Widow peeking main, or you could have your Junkrat main. You could have your Widow high. You could have your D.Va kind of like sitting, checking left, or floating around, or roaming, or something like that. Maybe, check the halls on the high right side. Whatever you want to do. Just in general, so grouped here. You've completely lost any information on what the opponent's doing. To be fair, it's not like you're reacting to that information when you see it anyway, but a better team would require that information in order to actually act accordingly. So not only does controlling map limit the options of the opponent in that they actually have to fight for territory, fight for map control before they can fight you, it also gives you better information about the opponents and how they are going to attempt to wrestle that map control from you. So, yeah, just 6 sets of eyes want to see 6 different things, ideally.
Did at the bookshop for some reason on my tire, and I just kind of strolled in.
Genji has been late. If you can
Whoa.
I have.
My mouse is dying.
Just get final mouse.
wait, can you damage?
I also get really annoyed when during scrims people don't have the discipline to like stay focused, stay grounded on the game. Like, oh, my mouse isn't working. And some guy's immediate reaction isn't shut the fuck up where are the opponents. It's, oh, you should get a final mouse. Drives me bonkers.
Yes, July 9th. Okay, I'm gonna, once I get my shield again, I'm gonna use...
What?
After this.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
God damn it. I headshot in a millisecond you use trans. Like, he literally just like...
Very interesting engagement from Red Team, but goddamn did it work. That's funny. Normally you would want to trance a little bit afterwards. Trancing early like that. The first thing that I did when I saw the Transcendence coming out was who did Niv, the opposing Zenyatta, Discord. Because this can happen. Like if you manage to land like a Discord on the Orisa, for example, it won't go away based off of the shield because that doesn't count as breaking line of sight. So if you were doing that, you could rush a Discord at a target with Transcendence. But I was like, what is going on here? But instead of that, I looked at the Orisa, no Discord, so I was like, what are they doing? And then they bladed. So if you are gonna like blade trance, you normally want to trance second because they won't normally react as violently to your Genji unless he's pulling his blade out. It worked for them. Was it necessary or the best thing to do? No, not really. It doesn't overly matter, though, because were you tracking ultimates? No, you were actually tracking which variant of the Ultralight Pro Final Mouse Sunset Super Epic 2016 edition was the best, which was honestly probably a more interesting discussion than ult tracking, but unfortunately, a Final Mouse won't win the game. So next time, stop being fucking morons and even give the remotest of a shit about ults. Thanks.
That's insane. That was prediction. About to go.
Oh man, I was expecting more from a 4.4K scrim. And this is one of the things, if you're sitting in gold and you're just like crying into your hands right now, you're like, why aren't I Grandmaster? So, Grandmasters are mortal beings. They are. Grandmasters are mortal beings. I wish to inform you of this. You too might know a Grandmaster. You could pass a Grandmaster on the street and you would never know the difference. They are not 16-year-olds hyped up on Monster who have reaction times in the single digits of milliseconds. They are not 25-year-olds who have been virtually augmented to plug and interface directly with the machine in order to have 3 different perspectives. Grandmasters are mortal too. And the other thing is that you get Grandmaster off of solo queue. You don't get Grandmaster off of 6v6 coordinated play or understanding, Sun Tzu's theory as applied to esports. You can get Grandmaster doing some real stupid shit. And being Grandmaster, the amount of mistakes that Grandmaster makes are still a fuck ton. A ton of them. Normally they're aware of most of the mistakes, and it's just they didn't recognize what they should do, not 1 second earlier. But Grandmasters are mortal peoples. And this is one of the things that I always kind of try and encourage other people to get into coaching, is because the amount of contenders level teams that I've worked with that have just completely been absolutely oblivious to what I would consider a key component of 6v6 play, like flank control or double snipers, controlling your flanks with double snipers on maps like Blizzard World and Junkertown and something. I taught that to a contenders team. Things like payload management. I've worked with a very large amount of teams that just have no idea about payload speeds and when you should have 1 man on and when you should have 3 men on and when you need to sacrifice payload for map control and, when you need to actually go for stagger kills and whatnot. Is that actually understanding the 6v6 play of Overwatch is a completely different skill set from playing Overwatch and getting to Grandmaster. You would be amazed at how many people in Grandmaster just don't have a fucking clue about anything other than the heroes that they play, and they just play them really well. They understand their matchups, they win their 1v1s, and they just play really well. But do they know anything about Team Overwatch? No, they don't. So they're different skill sets. So if you're sitting there and be like, I'd love to be a coach, but I'm not Grandmaster, don't let that get in the way. Different skill sets. Different skill sets. when I took like 2 seasons off to really heavily focus on coaching instead of playing the game, did any of that extra work, did any of that extra coaching help my solo queue rank? Nope. Not a single thing that I did coaching teams or working to learn really high level Overwatch compositions, metas, all the different things that go in. Did any of that help me in solo queue? Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing helped me. In fact, it actually probably hurt me, because for a while when I came back, I was trying to implement or play scrim strats in solo queue. Mistake. So they're different worlds. They're different games. And this 6v6 is the real Overwatch, I think. I think it's the real Overwatch.
They've gone triple.
Can you talk about payload push speeds? So a lot of people think that it's, especially at the lower ranks, people will always scream 3 on, 3 on, 3 on. But I won't do the full vote, because most people who've watched this channel for a while have heard me bitch about payload management at one point in time. But if you assume having one person on the payload will give you 100% speed, having 2 people on the payload will give you 116% speed, and having 3 people on the payload will give you 133% speed. So the benefit of having 2 or 3 people on the payload is actually extremely minimal. And it is almost always, there is a key word in there, almost. It is almost always better to have just one on the payload and use the 2 other characters to control map, which prevents the opponent from actually taking a fight on the payload earlier. So if you control the map up and they have to fight their way to get to the payload will normally go farther with just one individual on the payload compared to having 3 on, but ceding map control to the attackers or defenders who are now going to be coming to attack you. And how you take map control, when you take map control, when on the defense you try and wrestle map control back in order to stop the payload at very specific spots, when you yourself have the payload, where you defend to ensure that you're not fighting on the payload, you're not fighting behind the payload, you're fighting in front of the payload. Just taking fights in very specific locations on the macro scale, these are not things that GM or top 500 solo queue players think about. They're not. And you can be Diamond and teach these players these things. And hopefully, once Overwatch grows as an esport, the average level of Overwatch, the Overwatch IQ of the average player hopefully increases over time, because right now it's really fucking low. It's really fucking low.
Yeah, you could go Hans with me.
I think Tracer, you can build you up on...
As long as you can focus on this then every time with you.
I'm gonna pull him. Just focus shield, focus shield. There you go.
Genji, right side.
Oh, unlucky. Even make car?
Frames are dying.
You're taking so much
Ryan,
damage.
Ryan, focus Ryan.
1 row.
Focus Ryan.
First step.
Nice.
Add the bomb.
Okay, I'm
You
getting
make
D.Va back now. Nice.
See, this D.Va is true. No way this guy plays D.Va. There's no way. Let's see, for us, dead.
Genji on right still.
Push up, push up, push up.
Genji's low, Genji's low.
Nice.
This Zara, we need to kill her before she escapes. She got a lot of charge.
She's already out.
Yeah, she's out.
And she's gonna be full charge, so just shot into her.
Okay, they'll have grab. But they have nothing to combo with.
I think I'm just spoiled by higher level Overwatch.
They have no damage to save to send those.
I don't know why I would expect teams that haven't had, actual coaching to know these things, but it still disappoints me to see high-ranked teams having so much of their potential squandered.
Okay, the Zara's low.
Rhino shutter.
Kitchen top.
I'm tiring now.
Zen
I
one.
got Zen.
Ryan's low, Ryan's low. Ryan's one.
Sorry, dead.
Removable.
Contest, contest.
2v2.
I'm on it.
Okay, one baby D versus 3.
Fuck, dude. I was so
Oh, bro,
close
you
to
gotta win
bomb.
those.
I was so close to bomb. 92, dude.
You know, when I get angry at people, I think my greatest pet peeve, and of all of my instructing, teaching, the thing that has always annoyed me, it is my personal pet peeve, is wasted or squandered potential. People who have the potential to just be great at something, and for some reason either fuck it up or have no interest in it or give up or things like that. Nothing annoys me more than wasted potential.
Unlucky.
I don't know why frames are fucking dying. I feel like blowing.
Yeah, my frames are dying as well.
Like, I'm getting like.
So just little things like this. So does anybody see the error right now? What's the error right now? DeFran. Pepe hands. I can't believe XQC drew that emote. It's so good. Well, okay, you guys are listening. Sorry. I see a lot of suggestions. I see a lot of suggestions in chat about what's going wrong, and the vast majority of them are right. And so you're not wrong, but in my mind, I'm still trying to focus on what I consider the largest issue here is giving too much space. Junebug, yes. So we're back to payload management. So two things need to happen for this team. They need to start viewing games as a series of team fights and how this team fight will impact the next team fight. So what is wrong with the Orisa holding in this location? What is wrong with the Orisa holding right here? They're holding at the second corner, Ice Controller. You're goddamn right. But why is that bad? It's too late for a second fight. It is too late for a second fight. If the payload gets here, you fight here, and you lose, and you're not running a Lucio, you're not going to get a second fight. So even if you lose a fight, even if you have a 50% chance of losing when you're here, but a 60% chance of losing when you're here, this one still gives you a 100% chance of a second fight, where the spawn advantage is more in your favor, when you will have more ults. So it is fine to fight in a location that you have a worse chance of actually winning, because you can fight here without ultimates. You can force the opponent to use ultimates in order to beat you here. They will move past the location in which you had a better chance to win. You will fight where you have more advantages with more ultimates, and then you will stay in the game. But if you stay here and you place a shield this early, and it's in this open, it's not... Just fucking watch what's going to happen here.
It's just the patch. I get 30 FPS if I press tab.
Tab thing's separate. I think you should literally just Discord right now.
You're blink.
I am blink right
Let's
now.
go, let's go. Everybody shattered.
Okay, focus.
I'm fully getting like 5 FPS.
Lucio.
There goes.
I have a Brigitte, huh?
Yeah, I'm honest.
Oh, I
There
got
goes,
fucking
there
flung
goes.
off the map.
Back.
The only reason you're going to have a second fight is because they didn't have anyone on the payload during that fight. They completely abandoned the payload. The attackers here took the fight too early.
We're good for a
The
contest.
attackers took the fight too
Yeah.
early, and you are going to get a second fight.
30 seconds.
Dio has bomb.
Rip to your mercy.
Open dead.
Nursing 9.
Get Ryan.
Tiring.
Focus Ryan.
Run low.
Nice.
Sorry, those arts.
There's Lucio behind us. Lucio and caught. He's one. Lucio and caught one.
Lucio 1, Lucio 1, Lucio 1. I'm on Diva. Diva in the back.
Lucio dead.
That was a good kill. Lucio.
1.26 meters. 1.26 meters, right? Watch how the opponent manages the payload here.
I don't know why frames are fucking dying. I feel like blind. Fix this.
Yeah,
I read donations, subscription messages, and whatnot between maps. I don't do them during reviews because I upload these to YouTube. So if you did donate, subscribe, or anything of the sort, I'll read it after I'm done this map. But I apologize. I read those sorts of messages after maps, so it doesn't interrupt the actual review itself.
my frames are dying as well.
Like, I'm getting, like,
It's just the patch. I get 30 FPS if I press tab.
That thing's separate. I think it's literally just this quick right now.
Oh, you're blink.
I am blind right
Let's
now.
go, let's go. Everybody shattered.
Okay, focus.
I'm fully getting like 5 FPS.
Lucia.
They have goats.
They have a Brigitte, huh?
Yeah,
They did that bad. That's the only reason that the defenders here had a second fight. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna. Do we want to see overtime? It's not going to be overtime, is it?
Oh, I
They
got
have goats,
fucking
they have
flung off
goats.
the map.
Wait, did we only? No, it was a reset. Right, it was a reset. They reset at the half. So we are done. Okay. Wow, that was. I was expecting to see some cool stuff. Not be really disappointed with a 4.4K script, but it happens.